Hey, let's go on to the last topic of the night, which is, well, let's just play it first of all. I'm sure people have heard this around places today. Protesters gather outside Auckland High Court as Health New Zealand faces off with parents of a sick baby over vaccinated blood donors. If you don't know the story, put your "I'm ready to be shocked" hat on.
Well, a 4-month-old baby is caught in the middle of a row between his parents and Health New Zealand. He needs life-saving surgery, but his parents don't want him to receive blood from those who have been vaccinated. And now Health New Zealand wants guardianship. Dozens of the parents' supporters turned up at court, and Alice Wilkins was also there.
At the centre of all of this,
it's a freedom to choose,
is one tiny person, a 4-month-old baby.
He's stable at the moment. He's doing well. He needs an urgent operation.
Except progress to get that operation has come to a standstill as his parents engage in a standoff with Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand in court.
The baby concerned, obviously, is really pretty much in uncharted territory at this stage.
The 4-month-old has the heart condition pulmonary valve stenosis. His case is severe and needs a procedure to allow blood to flow properly around his body. But his parents don't want the blood of those who've received a COVID vaccine to be used in his surgery. And while both vaccinated and unvaccinated people can donate to our blood bank, that blood isn't held separately.
And neither fucking should it be. Can you imagine a system where we're going to play into these hands of these conspiracy theories, tin hat wearing lunatics and start separating blood, let alone from the fact that everyone's worried about your health privacy? Do you think that legally you're going to be allowed to ask someone? This is a side point. Have you been vaccinated before you give blood? Do you honestly think that that's a legal question you're supposed to be asked, allowed to be asked? It's ludicrous.
Well, I mean, just on that question, I mean, we do ask people questions such as, I'm not allowed to donate blood because I lived in the UK during a certain time in the 90s, and because when mad cow disease was around, Jacob Creutzfeldt, and I do have to answer that question, and if I answer yes, the answer is no. But more importantly, the fact is, whether you've been vaccinated or not makes no difference when you're donating blood. You know, it doesn't make any difference. You know, someone pointed out, some medical expert, and absolutely right, which is basically all blood donated in New Zealand will have COVID elements in it, you know, COVID antibodies, because so many of people have had the virus. Yeah.
And this is coming out later this evening.
Yeah.
No medical risk for children receiving vaccinated blood.
No, of course
says the people who are in the know of this. Let's just play the end of the story. Then I want to go on to one other part about this.
By this stage, several weeks ago, a child with this condition would have been treated.
We need to have safe blood. That is our right as a mother and as my voice for my baby.
Now Te Whatu Ora has made an application to put the baby's guardianship into the court so surgery can go ahead, saying today in a statement, "We know that it can be worrying when parents have a child who is unwell and are making decisions about their care. The decision to make an application is always made with the best interests of the child in mind and following extensive conversations with whānau." But the baby's parents and their lawyer, known anti-mandate campaigner Sue Gray, say they have around 30 unvaccinated donors ready to provide blood for his surgery.
Where there's a solution, it would be really a shame that that solution be missed.
The ideal outcome would be that the blood bank would agree to collect blood from these donors and put it aside ready for this baby to have the operation that he needs.
A crowd of the family's supporters gathered outside the High Court. The medical fate of their baby put on pause until the matter is heard in court next week.
Can you imagine, Jeremy, if we were allowed to dictate whose people's blood we were allowed to receive, what attributes the people giving us blood were allowed to have? We've just been talking about white supremacists. Could you imagine someone going, none of that Maori blood in me, none of that Maori, and I've got the right?
first thing that popped into my head was this is bloodborne eugenics, and so putting aside, let's put aside science, logic, and reason here for a second. Pat.
Okay.
Let's put aside the scientific fact that the blood that you put into yourself is not going to, if it's vaccinated or unvaccinated. Yeah, absolutely right. If we're going to set up the society where you have a list of criteria you can tick off before you receive blood from somebody. I mean, it's insane. I'm trying to put together a reasoned argument here, but I can't. I can't even play devil's advocate on this one. It's, there is a precedent for this. We've seen it. This is cases like this have come up in the past with members of certain religious groups,
Yeah.
usually very fringe elements of certain religious groups, who refuse medical treatment. And there has been a legal precedent where a court has. By the way, just to be clear, they're not saying they want to take the baby away from this family. They're not saying that at all. They're saying that its medical guardianship is handed over to the court, which means the court it's like giving somebody the power of attorney.
Yeah.
They're not saying the child can no longer live with you. We're not removing the child from their care. They're saying somebody more reasoned will get to tick that box that agrees to a surgery. So, yeah. That's where it's at.
There's another important part of this if we're going to play the game of let's just throw logic and reason out the window.
Sorry I suggested that, but yeah. Because neither you and I were really built for that.
If we've got two options, yeah. Option A would seem to be don't give your child a blood transfusion and looks like they're going to die. Right? Because the condition they've got doesn't enable the blood to circulate properly. So don't give your children a blood transfusion. Child dies. Do give your child a blood transfusion, even if they were right that it comes with more risks. Child lives and goes on to be able to potentially fight the evil vaccine that's in the blood. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I know what the response is going to be. Well, that's give them the unvaccinated blood. But then, like I said, so what happens when the white supremacist says, I don't want brown blood in me? Or, whatever it is. Or the Maori says, I don't want, Caucasian blood in me. Or the Cantabrian says, I don't want fucking Auckland blood in me. Or whatever it is, then what? Because if this precedent was set, then what?
Yeah. And then but then what happens if the next family that decide this, they see this case and they go, well, I don't want I don't want vaccinated blood in me the next time I have an operation, but they don't have these 30 friends that Sue Gray has managed to invent out of somewhere who are willing to donate 30 unvaccinated people. So what do? They just don't get a blood transfusion? Exactly. Yeah.
I also think Sue Gray, the lawyer, said, and I wrote it down here, she said when she was speaking to camera, we're looking for the ideal outcome. So the ideal outcome is to use the advice at hand by the medical fraternity that says there's no risk. The child should have had an operation several weeks ago, as the lawyer was saying, and get the child fixed up. That's the ideal outcome. The people who are not allowing the ideal outcome are primarily the parents, but this is the part that I get a little bit angry with, Jeremy. And I'll tell you why. Okay. It's because I've said this many times before. The people who have these beliefs about vaccines and masks and all these sorts of things have been told these beliefs by people at the top. Paula Penfold's documentary, which was called Fire and Fury, when she came on the show and talked to us, she said they were going to call it the instigators. And the reason she was going to call it the instigators was she didn't really want to make it about the people at the event. She wanted to make it about the people telling the people about the event, the instigators that actually gave out all the mis and disinformation. I'm being generous by saying misinformation because, as we know, means the information is wrong, but you don't realize it's wrong. Whereas disinformation is it's wrong and you spread it anyway. So those were the people spreading the mis and disinformation to bring those people along. You may or may not have seen it that press conference was Liz Gunn. I thank the good Lord, the good Jewish Lord, that she got no airtime today because she is one of the instigators. And let me just play you something from a conversation that she had talking about this couple and this family. Now, this might get us kicked off YouTube because I think she's kicked off YouTube, but I want to play this for you and then I will respond to it.
Very quick, it shocked me. They had a toddler in the tiniest of rooms. They had twins, 2 babies. The mother is sleeping in there cold. The father is coming in and out. The stress on that family of that alone, if they had all the support and love in that hospital in the world, it would still be a very stressful environment. You can feel it's quite claustrophobic. And then on top of that, they've got these psychological games being played by doctors, as you said, Calvin, trying to win, trying to feed their hubris, trying to say we're more important, we know, and you humans, you Kiwis know nothing. The stress on them is extraordinary, and look how calmly the mum copes with little Jack, the toddler, melting down a number of times.
Now, the reason I'm furious about this on some level, right? I started watching the movie. It's on Netflix. It's a German remake of All Quiet on the Western Front. It's really interesting watching it from a German perspective, actually making the movie of a book written by a German, not watching the Americanized version of it. And at the start of it, there's this scene where all these 17-year-olds, like we've heard stories before, because they've been reading the comic books about war and it's being glorified, and they're like, oh, this is so exciting, we're going to the front, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's amazing. They've been fed all this bullshit by the I guess by the generals or by society, that this war is a glorious thing and it's a fantastic thing and you should get involved. And of course, then they go to war and they realize what an absolute nightmare it is. These 17-year-olds have been fed a lie by the army, by the generals, by their government about what this war is. And then they go to it and they see how wrong they were. I feel like people like these parents have been fed a lie by these instigators, of which fucking Liz Gunn is one of them. And now they're in a position where they're in the trenches, if you will, with a child who may die based on all this bullshit information they've been given by people like Liz Gunn, who are now grifting off this, who are now getting profiled of this. I jotted down a few things she said. She says about the stress they were under. She said about the psychological games that the doctors were playing. Now, the reason that they're under stress and the reason they have a perception of psychological games is because of people like Liz fucking Gunn spreading the bullshit.
There's something a little ripe about saying that when they were in their hospital room, the amount of stress and psychological games that they were having to put up with, when your next job is to trot them out in front of a television camera with a massive Counterspin sign hanging behind their heads. If you didn't see that, it was, front and center. What kind of psychological game are you playing? What kind of stress are you adding there?
But that's the thing. And I think that so many of these people, and I know if these people see this, like the people who are at the protest or the people who believe what Liz Gunn says, they'll be like, oh, shell, oh, part of who's paying you? But I mean, the reality is, whether you believe it or not, you are either purposefully or inadvertently being duped by people giving out bad information. Remember, we've done these bits before. Conspiracy theorists are wrong always, ... mostly. It's very easy to do the research. It's very easy to figure it out. And Liz Gunn, basically, it's the cyclical thing where she is sowing these seeds of confusion and sowing these seeds of stress and then going, can you see how stressed these people are? Can you see how confused they are? Yeah. Because you've been putting it out there. It's like what's happening in America at the moment with all these people not believing the election results, and then all the right-wing media and the right-wing politicians saying people don't believe the election results. And that's because they've spent the last 2 years, the same right-wing media and right-wing politicians, telling them that there's something wrong with the election results.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So it's very
it is a vicious cycle, and these people, regardless of their own personal take on, regardless of how they feel, with, like you say, the disinformation that they've fed, I do feel for this family because they have been put in the middle of it. They've been caught in the middle of what should be a real no-brainer decision, like you say, which is our baby needs medical help. Let's make that happen.